We are now going to discuss social exchange theory. This is a theory that is supported by Dillman in his book, and it is perhaps one of the strongest ways of getting people to respond to your survey. Social exchange is all about response. I have found, as I said, I guaranteed 50% or no charge. So while I was mostly asked, in fact, I can't remember ever turning down a survey, but I was fortunate enough to get surveys where I understood the value of the survey and was able to convince people that the survey was important as well. So social exchange is different from economic exchange. And when we send out, for example, you might have received mail where you maybe get $1 or something in the envelope and you're asked to do it. Probably not too often you get that, but occasionally. More often, you're going to get a promise of something, like your name will be put into a lottery, or on your receipt from a pizza place, it'll say, call and answer our survey and be entered into a chance to win a free pizza. Or do this and we'll pay you later. And there's a couple of things about this. The main reason we don't like that, well, first of all, it doesn't work. But the main reason we go for we're going to argue that if you're going to give an incentive, do it up front. Do it before they've done it. Because what you're doing is, it's a trust issue. You are saying, I trust you to fill this out. So for example, a $1 to $5 token, as you can see here, sent with the original survey of construction workers, produced a higher response rate than a $50 promise of payment after completion. We have another one, response rates for registrants of a graduate master's exam were 10% higher for a $5 check enclosed with the survey than the promise of a $10 check upon completion. So it's not about the money. And when you enclose, say, $1, $2 in the check, you want to tell the person, this is a token of our appreciation. Perhaps get a cup of coffee to take the survey. We're not paying for your time. People get offended when you offer money that's supposedly paying for their time. They're much more expensive. They feel their consultation fee is greater than the trivial amount you can afford to give them. Honestly, I never, well, I can't say never. Most of the survey examples that I'm going to show you later, I did not have any monetary or any kind of incentive involved. When I did a survey of 1,000 Ohio State University employees, I did include $1 in the introduction. That's the only time I've ever done this. It's Dillman really promotes it now. He didn't before in the early days, but he does now, and that's fine. It probably does boost your rate a little bit, but it's a token given in advance, not later. Okay, so in our social exchange theory, we want to reduce costs, increase benefits, and establish trust. So we'll start with some costs, social costs. And the first one that we have is reduce length and complexity. Now, in the early chapters, Dillman has suggested, or in the early versions, I don't remember seeing it in the current one, but he talked about limiting your surveys to 100 questions. I have given a number of surveys that have had around 100. I think 103 was one of them, but in the neighborhood of 100 questions. And I've hit my 70% response rate with those. So when he says reduce length and complexity to reduce cost, he would probably suggest to be shorter than 100, but 100 is doable. My surveys were not very complex. They were straightforward questions that were, for the most part, pretty easy to answer. Use good visual design. That simply means that your survey looks nice. It's not a typed sheet of paper with questions with response choices randomly scattered around. But it looks good. When you give it, the person knows where they're supposed to go, where they start. Oftentimes you write the question stem in a larger or bolder font, and then you do the responses. They're a smaller font, so you can see what is a question, what is an answer. You can use italics for transitioning, though I will say most of the time you want to convey the information you want to convey in the question stem itself. Having like instructions at the beginning or stuff like that, people just skip that. It's like signing your license agreement on your software. You just agree and you go. And sometimes questions are missed because people think the question is just a continuation of the instructions, and then they go to the next one. In your collection of works, there's a good paper on demonstrating that. You don't want to insult your people. I mean, that seems obvious, but you can make statements. You can use words that are too complex, and it's like going to the doctor and the doctor telling you your friend had cardiac infarction, and so they think their friend died from a giant fart. You have to be you have to speak clearly to the person in a language that they can understand, and don't be patronizing. You have to make the responses convenient. Don't make them look all over for answers. Don't give them a list of 15 items to rank. It's just, they can't do that. Don't have your questions flow over from one page to another, the responses. So yes is on one page and no is on another. You don't want to do stuff like that. Avoiding uncomfortable modes means things like asking sensitive questions face to face. Sometimes that's a little harder than doing it using a computer. And you want to minimize requests for sensitive information. Now, that does not mean do not ask sensitive information. It just means don't make the whole survey like that. It just is too uncomfortable. But you can get a lot of information from people and stuff you wouldn't expect. In a lifestyle survey of employees at Children's Hospital, I asked about their drug use and their alcohol use. People answered. So increasing benefits. One of the big things you can do is tell a person how the results will be used. I mean, they need to know that what they're doing has some meaning to it. It's important. I mean, that's probably, you know, it's probably one of the most important things that you can do is convey the usefulness of their work. Ask the respondents for help. People want to be consultants. You're asking them to be a consultant. You're gathering information for them. You're not doing it so you can get your dissertation done and get a degree and get a good job. You're asking them for their help to answer an important question. Ask interesting questions. There's actually a case to be made if you have a basically boring topic for your subject, and boring and hopefully not to you, but from the point of view of your respondents, you should probably start out your survey asking some interesting questions on related areas, but maybe not necessarily what you are primarily interested in. You want to get them engaged into your survey. You need to stress that the opportunities to respond are limited. That is, that this is particularly true on follow-up cover letters. So that you're saying, okay, you want to let them know that you've sampled people. You only have a few people that you are talking to. And everybody's opinion is important. In that letter, you can say, your friends have, or other people have responded to this. We need your response too. The incentive at the beginning is a benefit, though not really that much of one. It's not its intention to be a financial incentive. It's more I care about you. I care about what you have to say. I trust that you will answer. Therefore, I am giving you this little bit of money. Do not deny that there are benefits to doing this study. Don't say, this is just my dissertation. I appreciate your response, but really it's not going to do you any good. The IRB requires the statement, there are no benefits for participating in this study, but you want to emphasize in other places, other than that particular sentence that the IRB might require, that a benefit is telling the person the results. People want to be engaged in interesting topics. Their attention span is short, that's why you want to keep the survey limited, but they are interested in some things, and if you give them the opportunity to find out the results, then that's good. I used to tell people their responses were confidential, but if they were interested in the results, I asked them to write their address on the stamped self-addressed return envelope so that I could send them a copy of the results. And then I told them I would destroy their addresses after that. It wasn't part of the data that I was keeping. Now with internet surveys, you can have a website where you can tell people you're going to post the results of the survey. It's a good idea to give them the opportunity. I mean, you have asked for their consultation. They have given it because they are interested in the topic. And so you want them to share, with them what you found. actually, this next one, use a legitimate and trusted sponsor. That's kind of on the next one as well. But basically, they're doing a favor for you in responding. They're providing information to you by responding in this survey because they want the sponsor to get the information. They're doing it, they see it's a benefit to them to be a consultant for this sponsor. And finally, the third part of social exchange is to establish trust. Show authenticity and legitimacy of the request. It's important to, this is that whole thing about do important things. Do meaningful things. Don't send your survey out under your name. Who's heard of you, you know? I mean, unless you're surveying your friends. You need to have a sponsorship. You need the real letterhead from a legitimate source. At the very least, you can send it out from Pacific University's Department of Education or whatever. That would be seen as a legitimate authority. If possible, you can build on past relationships and friendships. Here again, we talk about a token of appreciation in advance. That's you giving, expressing your trust, and then hopefully that will come in back. You want to assure confidentiality and data protection. Now, when I was doing surveys, paper surveys, I told people, I put a number on the booklet, and I told people in the cover letter, there's a number on your booklet. It's for mailing purposes only. And it was most of the time, if it wasn't, if I was linking it to other data, I told them that I was linking your response to other information depending on what it was. Occasionally I had a survey where I did that. But most of the time that number is just for knowing who to follow up. Like I mentioned before, you want to bug people, but you don't want to bug people who've already answered. Why annoy them? You know, those people, they've already been good. You want to be upfront about how you are gathering their information. This being upfront, this transparency, establishes trust. They know you are, or helps establish the trust. It lets them know you are being upfront about what you're doing. Finally, using the tips in this lecture, and if you get a survey book, whether it's Dillman's or not, use those tips to create a design that looks like it's been done professionally. You don't want a slick, highly commercialized, published survey, but you want it to look professional in its design. A note back on that confidentiality: if you're using SurveyMonkey or something, or some software, you can identify an ID number, and you tell them that this ID number allows you, for example, to exit and come back to the survey, or it's used just to know whether or not it helps you, the surveyor, know if the person has responded so that they can send out reminders. Now, I had people tear off the corner number, and they just got bugged again. It's not an evil thing. It doesn't hurt anything to lose that ID. It's just it cost me the cost of a stamp, which That time wasn't all that much, but it's getting to be there. The bottom line here is do interesting surveys. Do surveys that honestly ask for relevant, actionable information. Make people feel like they are doing something good for society or a particular company. That's the social exchange. That's going to get your response rate up.